Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And today we're going to be taking a look at a new announcement, the Gambit Hero Pack for Marvel Champions. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. And for those of you already subscribed, thank you so much for the continuous support. So this is going to be a live reveal, reaction, seeing what I think of these cards as they're being introduced. Marvel Champions is my favorite game of all time currently. It's going strong for 3 years now, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. These new X-Men cards are awesome, and I'm excited to see what Gambit has to offer. So let's get to the article and see what exactly this Thieve Extraordinaire has in store for us. We'll pull them up here, and inside we see Gambit. Here we are, the Thieve Extraordinaire. So Gambit here, it looks like Gambit is going to have another awesome color scheme. Reminds me a lot of Nebula with just how wonderful it looks in general. Includes a bonus modular encounter set featuring Exodus, the Herald of Magneto. So let's take a look at the cards. And I think that the best way to do this is to go through the cards themselves instead of reading the article. I think that if you want to read the article, go ahead and do that on your own. But let's take a look at the cards. Starting off with the alter ego side, Remi LeBeau. So Remi LeBeau here has 3 recovery, alter ego, mutant, and thief, which is a fun trait. I love it when you get traits like these because that just alludes to future card sets. So thief could be a really fun concept, maybe with stealing cards from, I'm not sure exactly where you'd steal them from. Would you steal them from the deck? Would you steal them from the enemy deck, the encounter deck? Maybe this would be a way to hold encounter cards that you're scared that might eventually show up. Who knows? But with Remi LeBeau here, we have a Thief Extraordinaire action effect. This is a thwart effect while in alter ego mode. That is super cool. Exhaust Remi LeBeau and look at the top 2 cards of the encounter deck. Discard one of those cards. Remove threat from a scheme equal to a number of boost icons on that card. That is amazing. That is exactly what I just predicted that thieving could be. This is really reminiscent of Black Widow, actually. If you're unaware, Black Widow has a lot of thwarting cards that can actually be used while she's in alter ego mode. And so this is very much the same thing. I imagine there'll be a deck made by somebody in the future where you'll have a Gambit deck that never changes out of alter ego. This is so fun because it hits that downside that being in the alter ego mode could have. However, it does take your exhaust. So I'm curious to see how often this will be used, but I like the idea that you're going to be able to choose which boost card is going to be added to the villain. So that's pretty awesome. You'll get some mitigation on these potential faults that could push you over into that next scheme. I really like this alter ego. I think it's really cool to have a proactive alter ego effect. The exhaust thing could make it not be used as much as I'd like. And next up we have, let's take a look. Let's find Gambit himself. Gambit here. Gambit, a thief X-Men. So that trait's going to carry on, which is very exciting. 1 thwart, 2 attack, 3 defense. That's a surprising stat line, actually. So big defender here. And charge the card. Action. Place a charge counter here. Limit once per round. And you can throw the card. Okay, so for an action, you place a charge here once per round, or you can throw it. When you play an attack event, remove up to 3 charge counters from here. That event deals +1 damage for each counter removed. Okay, so that makes sense. You're charging multiple cards, you're able to throw them out, and this is going to affect your entire card. So if you play something with multiple instances of damage, that card is going to be boosted up for both of those instances of damage. So I think that's going to be really fun with cards that have lots of multiple targets, and will boost some old cards as well, as I'm sure we'll see some new cards in this Gambit set. He's also got 5 hand size and 9 hit points, so a little bit of an average hero there. We'll go back into the second image here, the Thieves Guild. It is a 1-cost support alter ego response. After you resolve your Thief Extraordinary ability, exhaust the Thieves Guild, remove a threat from a scheme. If that removes the last threat from that scheme, draw a card. Okay, so this also seems a little bit more situational than the standard alter egos that you see, but I do see that it is also pretty dang useful. So you're going to get additional threat if you do use your ability and get that extra card draw. I don't see it being super powerful if you are turning down at the end of your turn, but I do feel that this could be very strong, especially when you're trying to recuperate from flipping into alter ego and healing and recovering, and then you can start off strong with an alter ego thwart. And I think that's kind of interesting that his thwarting ability is stronger on his alter ego side than his hero side. So the Thief's Guild feeds into that What a great concept and cool design here. Next up, we have Creole Charmer. 2-cost event, thwart action. Alter ego action, thwart. Remove 3 threat from a scheme. If this removes the last threat from that scheme, confuse the villain. So we have a lot of similarities to some justice cards where you get bonuses for removing the last threat from something. I like that his events actually deal with thwart, so you can focus on using your character to either use your standard ability in alter ego, or you can use your basic defend, basic attack while you're in hero mode. So I like that the events are going to make up for the not very strong base stats of thwarting. Really neat. I like this Creole Charmer card. It reminds me of the one cost card in Justice, where if you clear off the last threat, you get to draw a card. Confusion, though, is probably a lot stronger than a single draw from your deck. So I think this is a very powerful card. Let's move on. Next up, we have Charged Card. Oh, charged a card. 2-cost event, attack, superpower. Excellent. A hero action, attack, deal 4 damage to an enemy. For this attack, if Gambit's throw to card ability removed at least 1 counter, it gains range. 2 counters, it also gains piercing. And 3 counters, this attack also gains overkill. This is super fun. I love the fact that it's not only getting the inherent ability from the charged cards, but it also stacks on abilities. It's almost a create your own card, which is super fun. And you can decide how much you want to invest into this card. I hope that this is something that recurs in his set and maybe something that we see in future sets as well. I think this is a really smart design and also super fun. So 4 damage with range. I don't think range is going to be super important unless he has some way to generate tough statuses. Piercing, though, can be very powerful, particularly if you're doing extra damage. That'll be super useful. And then lastly, overkill is always excellent. And because you're pushing up to that 3rd counter, it's going to be a 7 damage piercing overkill. This is awesome. And its baseline is 2 cost. I'm curious if there are going to be more cards that actually add charge counters faster, so that way you can get to these more powerful abilities and use them more frequently. Next up, card number 6 of 18, Royal Flush, 3-cost event, attack, superpower. As a hero action, you're going to be able to attack. You'll place a charge counter on Gambit, and then deal 0 damage to an enemy. Awesome. Deal 0 damage to an enemy. Deal 0 damage to an enemy. Okay. I'm not sure how I feel about this card. I feel like that is a lot to ask for a 3-cost event. It's very expensive to get an extra charge counter. If you play it on your turn, you can do 2/2/2 to something. I'm not sure how I feel about this card. I think this is not going to get played very often, which is kind of sad. I would know it's just asking for cards that could potentially place counters, but I'm a little unimpressed with this. 3 costs is a lot to ask for something like this. I think on the turns when you can use it, it will be fun. You'll be able to do some big damage. But I think that there are going to be aggression cards that probably do some things that are much stronger and very similar statted and cost-wise. And this is probably, just looking at it right now, I don't think this is what you're going to be playing a lot, which is kind of unfortunate because I do like this whole idea of using cards to get other charge counters. Let's move on to the next one here. This is Natural Agility, a 0-cost event, defense, superpower. Awesome. Hero interrupt defense. When you defend against an attack, place a charge counter on Gambit. For each charge counter on Gambit, you get +1 defense for this attack. This is super cool because it's not actually spending your charge counters, but you're also using your inherent 3 defense value and just getting more value out of it. So the fact that this is a 0-cost card is awesome. Unfortunately, you can't just play this card and be a defender. It actually will add to your defense stat. So you are committing to exhausting and use your basic defense stat. But overall, I do think this is a pretty great card. It does say that, oh, maybe you could do this. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong on the comments here. But if you play this, you don't have to actually defend if you just want to trade in a card for a charge counter. And maybe that's what I'm reading it because it does have defense in the brackets. So you could use it to claim a defender for your second person you're playing with and then get the charge counter and just not use your basic defense. That seems interesting, but maybe because there's that thing in front of the arrow, I think I'm totally wrong on that. So feel free to correct me in the comments. But if it has that flexibility, awesome. If not, still good because of that inherent 3 defense value on Gambit. Next up, card 8, a 1-cost upgrade, Gambit's Guild Armor. It's an armor item. And this is a hero response, so it's optional. After Gambit defends against an attack and takes no damage, exhaust Gambit's Guild Armor. Ready, Gambit. Oh my gosh, this card's so good. It's like the Black Widow card, but this is just, your defense is already absurdly strong with 3, and then with the last card we just saw, you're going to have even more, and I'm sure you're going to spec some defense cards in here, because if you're able to block all the damage, oh, this is so strong. I think this card is great. 1 cost, super easy to play, and you get a ready out of it, I'll take it. This card is excellent. You could even take that position as the defender with your 3 defense and help out the team greatly. Next up, number 9 here, Molecular Acceleration. This is awesome. I love resource cards in hero sets. Molecular Acceleration, it's got 2 symbols, lightning and a punch, and Hero Interrupt. When you spend this card, place a charge counter on Gambit. Perfect. Oh my gosh, this card's great. So this actually is going to help you play those more expensive cards. Like I said before earlier, though, I don't know if you're still going to be using your resource generation on those larger cards, but the fact that you have more charge counter generation is awesome. We saw this in Riri Williams with Ironheart, and it's super helpful. And just having something that makes you do what you're doing already better, more quickly, and just more frequently, I'll take it. Molecular Acceleration is super powerful. Next up here is Rogue. This is our signature ally, Anna Marie, 2 thwart, 2 attack, and 4 cost ally. Good thing we have those double resource cards. This is a 3 health aerial X-Men. Some very actually great tags here for leadership as well as for team building and the whole X-Men package in general. Reduce the cost to play Rogue by 1 for each charge counter on your identity, and toughness with a wild resource symbol. This card is crazy good. This card is very reminiscent of something like the vengeance counter discounts on Drax or the discounts for having preparations for Black Widow, but the 2 cost, this stat line is amazing. 2/2, 3 health with toughness. You're going to be able to do a lot with Rogue, and this is a wonderful card. My goodness, this card's great. And this even specs into all of those leadership cards that we saw with the leadership cards we saw with Storm, as well as the protection cards that we saw in the base X-Men set. So this is actually a great target for mutant protectors. Doesn't necessarily have a good defense. Actually, this is not a good target. I lied. It's really bad. Don't use this on mutant protectors because you're not getting the discount. And the whole point of that card is so you don't pay for your ally. I take back my statement. It's bad. Don't use it with mutant protectors. Number 11, we have Operative Skill, 2 cost upgrade skill. It's got 3 uses, 3 operative counters, max 1 per player. Interrupt. When you thwart, remove an operative counter from here. That thwart removes 1 additional threat. So it's not a forced interrupt. So you can use it to do some fixing. This is actually very similar to the card we saw in Storm, where the leadership one had a very similar idea of being able to help your curve and get you something that's going to be out there. You can use it to protect yourself from things destroying your upgrades. So cut off guards. I think this will be good. So this is a fine card. I don't know if I'll play it personally. It doesn't seem very exciting or flashy to me, but I think it could be very useful. Next up is Breaking and Entering, another 2 cost event, thwart event, and this has play only if your identity has a spy or thief trait. Super fun. Action, thwart, remove 3 threat from a scheme. You'll notice this does not say hero action, so there are even more cards to be able to thwart while you're in the alter ego mode, and this is, maybe that's what the whole thief and spy trait is going to be leaning towards. It's a solid card. It doesn't do anything particularly flashy or interesting. Me personally, I'm probably going to want to play there's that card that this first card you play, it gets bounced back into your hand. That one seems probably the one I'll gravitate towards, but the fact that you can play it in alter ego mode is super awesome, and it's just going to fuel that deck idea that says, hey, let's try to never turn into hero mode. So I'm curious how actually viable that will be. The Black Widow one was extremely viable. Like, you could win pretty much any scenario with it, which is wild to me. But it just took so long, so it wasn't that fun. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a good balance between viability as well as actually having fun and not being this most grindy game in the world. So hopefully there are some more spy or thief cards that lean into that. Card number 13 is Stealth Strike. It's an attack event, hero action attack. Deal 4 damage to an enemy. If that enemy is defeated by this attack, remove 2 threat from the scheme. This is, I feel like we have this card already. Yeah, I feel like we do have this card. This already exists. It's a card already. This is just an alternate art version of it. The other one came in the Black Widow pack. It's the same thing. Yeah, this card's fine. It's pretty situational for only 4 damage to an enemy. In fact, it's in Justice, though, is something to be said. You've got 4 solid damage in the aspect. Number 14, Mutant Education, 0 cost event. Play only if your identity has the mutant trait. Alter ego action, choose up to 2 identity-specific cards in your discard pile and shuffle them into your deck. If X Mansion is in play, draw 1 card. I really like this card, actually. I think this is a really cool card. The fact that you're going to have Gambit with the ability to flip into Alter Ego quite frequently, and that's definitely a theme that you see in the X-Men in general. Their package is so powerful, especially if you're planning on flipping to Alter Ego every so often. And then the cards that we saw already facilitate the confusion, as well as Professor X. You'll have a lot of ways to set yourself up for success into flipping into Alter Ego mode, and this just pushes that further. I'm curious to know when the limit will break once you start feeling like there are way too many powerful neutral X-Men cards, because I already feel like that after seeing the Storm pack. There's essentially an entire a set of almost 25 cards that you can put into every single X-Men deck with these first 4 releases, and then Storm's just going to add even more to that, and then Mutant Education is going to add to that even more. It's going to be funny when you're going to have to pick and choose between your neutral cards as opposed to picking the aspect cards that you want to play, because normally neutral should be, in my mind, some like a filler in between the different aspects, but this mutant package in the neutral set is crazy, and I think this is actually a pretty cool card. It's not overpowered or anything, but I think it is cool, and it's fun. It's going to give you another reason to play X-Mansion to vary up those strategies and vary up your games from game to game. 15, Beauty and the Thief. Nice, another team-up card. 2-cost event, attack and thwart, team up Gambit and Rogue, max 1 per deck, hero action, attack, thwart, deal 4 damage to an enemy, remove 4 threat from a scheme. This is essentially the other neutral card. There's a neutral card that does this exact same thing with almost this exact same test, but the numbers are 2s instead of 4s. This card's fine. The biggest thing that I'm excited from this card is actually that it is hinting to a rogue hero, which is great. Awesome. I'm curious to see what her power stealing will be. This card is good, is definitely well costed for what it puts out, and I think that it's not super flashy, but I don't think it's supposed to be. So that is Beauty and the Thief. Next up, number 16, Exodus. So we're into the encounter set now. 1 scheme, 1 attack, 6 health, Acolyte, Elite, Psionic, Retaliate 1, Villainous. When revealed, search the encounter deck and discard pile for the Psionic Shield attachment and attach it to Exodus. Let's go find out what that is. I imagine it's the next one. Psionic Shield attachment, +1/+1. So that means that our boy is coming in at 2 scheme, 2 attack, 6 health. And if there's not a minion, it gets Surge. Forced Interrupt. When attached minion would leave play, instead heal all damage from that minion and put it back into play. Then discard this attachment. So this is just going to be a very sticky, annoying minion with Villainous and Retaliate. That's actually pretty scary. You'll have this consistent threat that you'll need to deal with, and he's going to have a variable amount of damage, which is a little terrifying, particularly with some of these scary boost icons. Not boost icons, the special effect icons. I don't actually know what they're called. Not the ones that are these little stars, but the ones, these little triangles, but the ones that actually give you special effects. So there's a lot of scary ones in the X-Men sets. So this is very scary. This is going to be one that you're going to want to kill, but you have to dump so many resources to do so. With Retaliate, that's not going to feel good. And then 18, we have our side scheme, Herald of Avalon. Exodus sees Magneto as a savior of mutant kind and serves as his herald. When defeated, the player who defeated the scheme searches the encounter deck and discard pile for Exodus and reveals him. And then an extra icon for additional card draw. This reminds me a lot of the MODOK set, actually, but MODOK, you pretty much knew what he was going to do every turn. He was something you planned for. With the new X-Men stuff, you could basically nullify his existence by just putting a minion upgrade on him. But Herald of Avalon and all of these other cards are basically just focused on getting out Exodus and making him a really annoying, sticky minion. So not my favorite. It's not super flavorful, in my opinion. I'll be honest, I don't know who Exodus is. It looks like he is a servant of Magneto. So I'm curious to see how this actually works. Are there any more exciting or interesting cards in this encounter set? Because right now he just seems like a difficult minion, a more difficult MODOK, yes, that's fine. That's going to be great if you want that difficulty spike, but overall not something that I'm super excited for. Thinking back to the cards in general, I think that's... now I've got to pick my star card, the card that I am the most excited to look more into. I think that I'm actually going to just choose Remi LeBeau here. So I think Remi is really interesting. The fact that he is playing into this ability to set up the encounter deck, you're able to almost ensure that your scheme is not going to move through. It's going to give you a really reliable way to flip into alter ego mode without actually relying on confused statuses. And I think that's super helpful because it's going to make you be able to use Remi in more difficult scenarios where characters have stalwart as well as the steadying keywords. So I think it's going to be really fun to play with Remi in Expert 2 Standard 2, particularly because the Expert 2 cards and Standard 2 cards, they have a lot of effects that are terrible when you're in hero mode, and they're not as terrible when you're alter ego. So you're actually going to be encouraged even more to use Remi to be able to manipulate that deck and get rid of those really killer cards. So this card is really fun. I love the fact that you have this thwart access in alter ego. He plays into the X-Men trait cards in general, allowing you to facilitate that flipping into alter ego. And I think it should be a fun time. So that's Remi LeBeau. He's one of my standouts here for sure. The other standout has to be Rogue. I think that she is super, just on a power level, she's super powerful. Oh, I should talk about this one though. This might be it. This might be actually my favorite one, charged card. And I hope there's more. But the charge card here, the fact that the abilities scale is super interesting. I just wish that the first counter wasn't ranged and was something else. I like this idea of customizing cards, and I think charge card does it really well, particularly in the 2 and 3. It's a great idea, and I'd like to see more of this. So if there's more charged cards in Gambit, awesome. I think that this one could have a little of tweaks here and there, particularly with the one counter effect. I don't think ranged is the most interesting effect, but it is thematic, I would say, because you are Gambit, you are throwing the cards, so it makes sense that you get ranged. But in my opinion, I wish that it was just a little tweaked a little bit differently to be more of that customizable card when you play it. But still a lot of fun. It actually reminds me a little bit of the Phoenix cards, where you can decide when to switch into that over the crazy mode, super powerful mode, and then add new abilities to your cards. But that's it. Those are all of the cards for the Thief Extraordinaire for Gambit. I'm pretty excited about this set. So I waited all day before I could go see it to make sure that I had the reaction. So now I can go see some thoughts and some other content creators. If you have any questions about any of the things that I talked about here, let me know down in the comments below. Which cards are you the most excited for in Gambit? Which cards do you agree with me on? Which cards do you disagree with me on? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll leave the stream up for maybe another minute or so, just in case there are any comments trickling in. But I'm quite excited for Gambit, and I think that he's going to be a great addition. I'm giving those charge counters, allowing you some more flexibility in the alter ego mode. And I think that his cards are a lot of fun while being thematic. Some of the cards are definitely thematic, but maybe a little bit underpowered. But I think that's okay, and that's kind of the thing that I like about Marvel Champions, is when they have that great balance of thematics with power. And I think that Gambit has a bit of everything. Some of his cards are a little bit overcosted, but the fact that he himself is actually very good, the alter ego and the hero mode, I think, are very strong. I'm excited to see what decks can be built and what fun we can have with Gambit. I'm gonna drink really quick, and then I'll close it out. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Side Game Strong.